Welcome to the program in the studio. My name is Hamza El-Nakhal, and I would like to welcome my guest today. Yousef Marmosh is an engineering consultant. Sarah Moussa is American Egyptian activist. And
Cheryl
Miles-Menoufy is the president of Closing the Gap. Today we're going to speak about, or we're going to update you on the Egyptian uprising. And we just take it straight to just do a quick revision from what happened in January 25th, then we'll follow up. So if I can start with Sarah, if you can update, just summarize what happened in January 25th and so forth, then we'll follow up after that.
Sure. As we witnessed in 2011, there was a series of revolutions. It started with the Tunisian revolution in the end of 2010, and that was stirred by just a street vendor who was being hassled by the government because he didn't have the proper permits to sell fruit. And this is, a college graduate who is pretty much doing, the bare bones minimum just to bring in income. This case was not just in Tunisia. This is in Egypt, in Yemen, in Libya, and Syria, and all the different countries. And the next country that started this own similar revolution based off of the inspiration from the Tunisians was the Egyptians. In Egypt, on January 25th, 2011, they uprised. They gathered in huge numbers in what we call the center of the revolution, Tahrir Square, and they joined forces, people across all socio-economic, political levels and classes, and they came together for one cause, that they wanted the corrupt regime of the Mubarak administration to be wiped out. And they wanted them to essentially leave their positions and to give way for a new generation of clean, good institutions to begin to take Egypt and revive it. And this revolution lasted throughout 2011. It was not just an 18 days of revolution. This revolution is still now, as we are sitting in the studio today. Within 18 days, though, on February 10th, 2011, Mubarak stepped down from his position, and that was a big victory for the Egyptians. This was the demonstration to them that they could actually have their voices be heard, and they could change policy together. And this was a major moment in Egyptian history, and several events took place throughout 2011. There were constitutional amendments in which the people had their first opportunity to vote. There were several series of protests afterwards to continue to remind the administration that, yes, there is a transition of power and we'll hold you accountable to it. There were parliamentary elections beginning in November, and that just ended at the end of 2011. And we celebrated the first anniversary of the revolution this past January, and we've seen several cases in which there are hopeful changes for transition to power.
Well, so many things happened during this time, and there were so many demonstrations, and there were always pressure on the SCAF, the Supreme Council of Egyptian forces. And the SCAF usually didn't move without pressure. Can you tell us the role of SCAF? Is the SCAF part of the old system, or they are really with the Egyptian people, or they have their own agenda?
I think they are in the middle of all three of them. And it is not a position that I personally sympathize with them, because it's very difficult and awkward situation. They are part of the old regime. However, they are trying to adapt to the revolution and to the demand of the people. And that makes their position is very difficult. In addition to that, they are not politicians. And that makes it very difficult for a military personnel to rule. Actually, my personal opinion, what's causing that friction is lack of communication between them and the Egyptians, and opening a line of discussions and finding out exactly what they want and how could we achieve it. And that's not normally easy for a military personnel.
Thank you. Cheryl, an important question. During this year, we had the parliamentary election. And I look at our parliament, it's mostly men. I hardly see any women. Do you know how many women in this parliament?
There's, I think, less than 4 or 5%.
Yes.
I think it's a single-digit number, percentage.
Single digit. Can you see any impact of having a parliament just mostly men without women representation or enough women representation? What do you think?
Well, that's an interesting question, Dr. Hamza. Thank you. And I also wanted to let you know that I'm not Egyptian, as we probably all know.
But you're married
American.
You're married
Yeah.
to an Egyptian American who's really active, and he's done a lot of wonderful
Yes,
things.
and we are both very active, actually.
I
I've
think
been
so.
to Egypt about 7 times just before, during and after the revolution. And we've both been working in several organizations to help the Egyptian people. So to answer your question about the women, I think I want to go back to what Yousef was saying about the SCAF, the Supreme Council of Armed Forces. Military organizations are not raised, taught, or trained to govern. They are not. They're military organizations. So I think if I could net out what you said, they're in the wrong job. They should not be ruling and should not be ruling during a transition. They've never been taught to govern. They've never been, it's not their military's role to govern or to create a governance system. Egypt is traditionally a patriarchal country.
Yeah.
And so I think if you looked at the revolution, if you look at any of the pictures of the masses and the crowds out on the square, there are a lot of women involved. And in fact, there are women leaders in the revolution. So it's not just a revolution of the government, it is a revolution of the women. And I think it takes time to change. So I would, of course, love to see a lot more women in the parliament. I'd love to see a lot more women in our government here today, which is why I'm happy Sarah's here. So I see our future here as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. During the revolution, it was probably more women than men. I saw they were really leaders, and they just impressed everybody. I was just impressed by them, and their role in the revolution. I just would like to see more representation. That's what I'm.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm concerned that what could happen in other countries, such as Iran or other countries, would creep into Egypt, and that's why I would just. I give this question just because I'm really worried, because when I see a whole parliament is without enough women representation, I worry. So.
Well, and a broader question really is there proper representation in Parliament for what the population of Egypt is?
I don't think so.
That's right.
Yeah.
And women is definitely one of the factions. But it's also an indicator of this type of election and this type of democracy is new to Egypt. And so it will take time. We keep saying in Egypt as here, democracy is not a destination.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
So there will be a constant evolution. France took 100 years. How long will it take Egypt? It's not going to happen in a year. But I believe that over time, if things are moving in the right trajectory.
Yeah. And we're still really struggling with democracy here in the United States. I mean, it's not.
That's correct.
It's not easy. I mean, it's look at all the different opinion between the Republicans themselves. Forget about the Republican and Democrats. The Republicans themselves have a lot of difference. Even the Democrats have a lot of difference in opinion. So it's in Egypt we lived under dictatorship for a long time. So the process is gonna even take us much longer to get to know what democracy is.
That's right.
I think I want to also tack on to what Cheryl was saying. I think that representation of women is important. Representation of what the people are is important. Representation of where the people want to be, who they are. I mean, these are all factors of the parliament. And right now, maybe we're not seeing that. But like you said, even the USA has its own problems. Even France, UK, Germany, all the countries across the world have their own problems. And I mean, the USA, look how many people are in how many women are in Congress right now. Our numbers are even lower than some other African nations. I think, I can't remember which nation has almost 40% of women in their Congress, and we're the USA. I mean, we're a superpower in the nation, and after 250 years, we still haven't gotten it right. And this is Egypt's first year. We really have to give them the time that they need to grow, and the Egyptians will learn, from their first time around, what they didn't like and how they didn't want to see certain people be elected, or certain factors of the nation or groups or parties, and they'll really start to campaign. And what you were also saying is that even Republicans within their own party, or Democrats within their own party, there's extreme far moderates in the Democratic Party. There's very, very, very progressive folks in the Democratic Party, same as there are in the Republican Party, and that's within just a two-party system. In Egypt, there's many, many, many more parties, because this birth of democracy is just so fresh. So many people want to be able to express their ideas, and they've all factioned into different groups. We have seen the parliament taken over by a certain, just a few different groups, but that's similar to the concept of liberal versus conservative. In the Egyptian parliament, there is a large number of Muslim Brotherhood folks. They are led by conservative ideals based off of their religion, Islam, and that is very similar to the Republican Party, tied by social and religious values. There's also the Liberal Party in Egypt, and that's similar to the Democratic Party. And this is just normal. I mean, over the past 250 years in America, we've gone between conservative and liberal governing bodies. The same thing goes for Egypt, and we just need to give them their time to find out what is best for their nation and meets their needs.
You lead me right into the next question, really, is like again we saw in the parliament is vast majority of Brotherhood and the Salafis movement. A representation of the Christians and people who are not religious. People who are secular, is not really clear. Can you fill us on how would those other people be represented? Well, she said that's not really equal representation. We understand that, but where do these people go to get their?
I think it's very easy to criticize at this stage the
We're not
misrepresentation.
We're not,
no, I'm talking about as misrepresentation for all factors of even the Egyptians are not happy about that. But you need to start somewhere, and that's the point of start. You have to look at years of corruption. It is just like, I'm an engineer, I always look at it as it's a building. To destroy a building, it's very easy. You remove the foundation, the building falls down. And that's what happened in Egypt. Now, to build a new building, you have to start from thinking, what do you like that building to look like? And that's the infrastructure. And then you start building it, and you put the foundation, and you go from that point. And that's what the new regime need to do, is just to set the foundation. Regardless if they are representation for women, representation for this or that, just be honest and put clean, honest foundation, and then start building. And if it takes 100 years, it takes 100. But destruction is much easier and faster, and that's what happened before. And I could see personally, like a few weeks back, the first time in my life, a representative in the parliament stands up and talk against everybody. This never happened, let's say, in the last 40, 50 years, while I was watching this. Then it means there is a change, and we are in the right direction. But how long it will take, and when we'll reach democracy, I cannot answer that.
Why do we have so much unrest in the streets of Egypt, for continuous unrest?
I believe that we go back to the military. There is no good communication. You look at situation like that, and if you list the problems in the country, and you talk to the people and have let's say like weekly discussion. These are our problems. Engage them in the solution. Don't give them orders. You do this, I do this, or you don't do this, I do that. This military attitude does not get you back. People distrust the government. That's it.
Any government.
Any government, based on the history.
Yeah.
Now, to change that attitude, you have first of all to change the environment. And the first step in changing the environment is to be transparent with them and be honest and explain the problems you are facing, because I know they have reasons for what they are doing.
Yeah.
But the people doesn't know those reasons.
Yeah. It's been missing. The transparency
Yes.
has been missing. That's true.
And then they come back and say, people are not accepting anything because you are not telling them what to do. I will give you an example. The people, there was one of the revolutions or came out, at some time that the airline staff, they want to change their salaries or something like that. The company is losing money. Based on our thinking here in the United States, you have to tell them, go and make the company profitable, and then you get better pay. But don't go to the government and tell them, give us more money. But they know. I have not seen somebody coming out in the TV and telling them that. No, they tell them, that's okay, we'll look into it. These are the issues which actually that miscommunication is causing the majority of the problems.
I appreciate that, and I think that's a very optimistic view, but I just have to say I agree with what you've said. However, there are things going on that make the Egyptian people very unhappy with where they have arrived in their uprising. And among those there is not one single person in Egypt who has been held accountable for the atrocities that the military did against their own people. Yeah. And there have been crimes caught on video, there have been trials, and nobody has been held accountable for that. That has angered really a lot of the Egyptian population. It is also that they don't see that the change in the structure of the government has changed, that there is much change going on to the structure of the government. I believe that in a democracy, it really doesn't matter as much who that one person, who that one president is, as it matters that the system is in place of checks and balances to hold people accountable. If it's been a year and not one person has been tried and held guilty, and there hasn't been any change, then the people are not happy with that. And there isn't any trust that it will change. The same tactics that happened during Mubarak's regime, where they kept promising a fair election, they keep hearing these promises again from the military, which they view as the same people. Why should they trust that?
Cheryl, I really want to ask you, I agree with you, but you've been in Egypt before the revolution, during the revolution, after the revolution. A lot of people, among them members of my family, they just feel sick and tired of the revolution. This is the truth. A lot of them were really optimistic at the very beginning, got rid of Mubarak, but now everything is just kind of, nothing is moving. And the economy is getting worse every day. That's right. There is about 1,600 factories that's closed down. Many investors sold their investment and left. Many people lost their jobs. Tell me your impression when you went before and after.
I went before and after, yes. And I have a lot of family in Egypt as well, and spend a lot of time with them. And I have to say, they call me an Egyptian in the heart, because I fell in love with the Egyptian culture and the Egyptian people. Sarah knows what I'm talking about. Yes, I'm an honorary Egyptian. But the Egyptians are so warm and so patient. It's really the warmest culture that I've ever been exposed to. And it's amazing as a people that you can have. I was on the square on the victory celebration. There were 3 million people on Tahrir Square that day. And I was the only foreigner that they saw on the square besides an Italian journalist. The people were so kind. I can't imagine any other place in the world where there are no police, no security forces, nothing, and a celebration, and the people were so kind to each other. This is really the heart of the Egyptian people. The day after, they started cleaning the streets. Volunteers went out and cleaned the streets. The first time I went to Egypt, I was surprised at how the trash is in the streets. after the revolution and the many times I've visited, that has changed. People feel a pride in their country, a change, like they own it and they feel very empowered. And if you ask people on the streets what the change is, they'll say, well, it's our country now and we're proud of it. However, the economy has fallen. Tourism was a huge part of their income, and that has fallen. People are suffering. It's been a year. We've working with some of the youth revolutionaries and the NGOs that are trying to help the very poor, because it's always the poorest in society who are the most impacted. And even those in the middle class who are doing well, they're just tired. There's still no police. There's no leadership. There's no management of a country of 84 million people. That is very tiring. For people who did relatively well before the revolution, they're longing for those days again. But the majority of the people want the change. If they have a bit of hope, they will be patient.
Well, Sarah just got married in Egypt recently, and she came back. And I know she has some memories also of Egypt. Just tell us about your impression. What happened after the revolution? I think we want to convey really. How can we fix it?
How can we fix it is a tough question, but I'll answer the first one happily.
Okay.
Well, I actually got married in the midst of near Tahrir Square, and that day they called for a 1 million man march. So on my wedding day, I'm expecting to go and get my hair done and get dressed and my makeup and all these things, and I'm delayed by traffic because people have held up the square. I have security concerns for the people that are attending my wedding. I have many things. We had to take a different route around Tahrir Square so that we wouldn't be held up by delays, so that I could actually, get to my wedding. And this is just one evening. This is what people have been enduring every single day since January 25th, 2011. On my way from when I first arrived, my first ride in the car from the airport to where I was staying, it's no more than about maybe 5 miles. And this ride took me almost an hour. And it took us almost an hour because people have a new sense of what the word freedom means. It means that they are free to drive on the opposite side of the road because they need to get to a certain place more quickly than others in traffic, leading to certain delays in the road, leading to this, leading to that. And there's no police on the road. I mean, here in America, we have a patrolling system in which a cop will patrol the roads and look for illegal activity. In Egypt, there is one person in the midst of hundreds of thousands of cars merely leading traffic, if even that. And even those people are now gone. I remember in the midst of my stay, they reinstated the patrol people, and people welcomed them, the drivers on the roads welcomed them with open arms. And these are people that they really didn't like to deal with in the past. But given how grave the situation got in merely just traffic, it showed you how much they are over the revolution, essentially. Just an average Joe Schmo or average Muhammad or average George, they are tired of the daily delays. They're tired of the insecurity. They're tired of feeling the fear to walk in the streets because there's no police to find whoever is any criminal activity. And just like Cheryl said, this is what they have to deal with every single day. So people are tired of it. But I think that I have to say one of the major observations I had was that people are their discourse, their discussions have changed. What used to be a discussion about recipes or food or what they're cooking tonight is who did you vote for, why did you vote for them, and who are you going to vote for in the presidential election. Just this mere discussion change means that there's change in their mentality of what they thought they could talk about before and now what they have the opportunity to talk about now. And I think personally for me that brings up the most important point, that education should be the #1 priority of implementation after the revolution. The #1 thing that they need to talk about.
Safety and security first.
I think that's very important now.
Safety and security. Safety and security comes first, then we have to go in education.
That's true. I mean, we have to make sure that our roads are secure, and I think that they've really started to do that by putting some patrol people out and emphasizing that.
You
But-
could look at the name of the security when you call it here, the law enforcement. And the police there, it's not law enforcement, is they are enforcing the rules of the government. And they are against the people instead of helping them. And I think this is the first stage they need to look at. And they were raised in their college and their studies as a law enforcement officer or a police officer on that environment. Then you need to define and change that and make them, by law, are law officers and they enforce the law, not to do what the government wants them to do.
But you bring up that exact same point. They need to be taught and educated differently than how they were before.
Yeah.
Their mentality needs to change to enforcing the law rather than in protecting the regime.
I want to spend, we have about 2 minutes. I know you're involved with NGO organization
Yes.
Egypt. If you can tell us about NIBNI and
Yeah.
ASA, because it's very important if we can
It's
help.
really important, and the exciting thing that it was really born of the revolution. This is a group of young, educated Egyptians who were on Tahrir Square together and saw the love between the people. It didn't matter if you were male or female, Christian or Muslim. None of those things mattered on the square. Everybody was with everybody. They also understand how people are suffering in the economy. So they have created this organization called NEBNI, and they've created a whole socioeconomic model that they did research on and saw Brazil was successful in this, where they provide education, rebuilding homes, and entrepreneurial center for economic sustainability in one neighborhood, one street at a time from in Manshia Nasser, one of the poorest neighborhoods, to give the poor people assistance where they're needed, especially those who have been impacted by the tourism industry, but to create a self-sustaining model.
Well, I really want to thank you. I wish the time would allow us to stay more, but I think we're out of time. And I would like to thank you all very much. I'd like to thank all the viewers. And if there is any question, you can contact me or contact any of our guests. And thank you very much.